Hello and welcome back to Friday Reads, where we help you find your next read. I'm Jill.
And I'm Jules. I'm back this week, and this is our first Friday Reads during our winter reading program. Winter reading program is going to run from January 17th to February 19th, and Jill and I made a square. So one of the squares on your teen and adult bingo sheet is Watch Friday Reads on our Facebook page.
So you've already earned some things there.
If you're tuning in today. So today our theme is going to be mysteries, thrillers, suspense. So if that's not your jam, we'll put in our comments other places that you can find our Friday Reads videos, because we're on Facebook, we're on our YouTube channel, so we'll give you some instructions if you want to go back and look for one of our other videos. So, but today, thrillers, mysteries, suspense, and I'll turn it over to Jill to kick us off.
So this is kind of a wide category because there's thrillers and mysteries and suspense. So if you like whodunit, I have this recommendation. I've heard a lot about this author. This is the follow-up to his first book, which was The Thursday Murder Club, which is a quirky English comic crime featuring 4 elderly main characters who are trying to solve a murder. So this is the following Thursday with the following month. Elizabeth has received a letter from an old colleague, a man with whom she has a long history. He's made a big mistake and he needs her help. His story involves stolen diamonds, a violent mobster, and a very real threat to his life. As bodies start piling up, Elizabeth enlists Joyce, Ibrahim, and Ron in the hunt for a ruthless murderer. And if they find the diamonds too, well, wouldn't that be a bonus? But this time they are up against an enemy who wouldn't bat an eyelid at knocking off 4 septuagenarians. Can the Thursday Murder Club find the killer and the diamonds before the killer finds them? So if you want something fun that has a murder in it, this might be the book for you.
I just told Jill, I just put that on hold, and Libby, I did read The Thursday Murder Club, thought it was really fun. So, good pick. My first pick, I'm going way back in time. I picked The Big Sleep by Raymond Chandler, which was published back in 1939. It's the iconic first novel from crime fiction master Raymond Chandler, which featured Philip Marlowe, the quintessential urban private eye. A dying millionaire hires Private Eye Philip Marlowe to handle the blackmailer of one of his 2 troublesome daughters, and Marlowe finds himself involved with more than extortion. There's kidnapping, pornography, seduction, and murder are just a few of the extra complications he gets caught up in. This work established Chandler as the master of the hard-boiled detective novel, was how they described it, and his articulate and literary style of writing won him a big following, which ranged from the man in the street to the most sophisticated intellectual. He followed The Big Sleep with Farewell, My Lovely, The High Window, The Lady in the Lake, and 4 other novels in the Philip Marlowe series. Raymond Chandler died in 1959, leaving behind the opening chapters of the Philip Marlowe private investigator novel set in the 1950s, which another author, Robert B. Parker, stepped in and completed. So if you're familiar with him. Here Marlowe has moved from L.A. to the big buck community of Poodle Springs, that's what that one is called, where he's hired by the area crime boss to track down a missing local who has run out on a gambling debt. So this book was also made into a movie in 1946, starring Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall. So kind of went way back in time, but thought this would be a classic mystery novel. So, The Big Sleep.
My next one is on the new shelf. Velvet Was the Night. This is from the best-selling author of Mexican Gothic. So if you saw that book, this is the same author. It's a delicious, twisted treat for lovers of noir. It's 1970s Mexico City. Mate is a secretary who lives for one thing, the latest issue of Secret Romance. While student protests and political unrest consume the city, Mate escapes into stories of passion and danger. Her next-door neighbor, Leonora, a beautiful art student, seems to live a life of intrigue and romance that Mate envies. When Leonora disappears under suspicious circumstances, Mate finds herself searching for a missing woman and journeying deeper into Leonora's secret life of student radicals and dissidents. Meanwhile, someone else is also looking for Lenora at the behest of his boss, a shadowy figure who commands goon squads dedicated to squashing political activists. Elvis is an eccentric criminal who longs to escape his own life. He loathes violence and loves old movies and rock and roll. But as Elvis searches for the missing woman, he comes to observe Mate from a distance, and he grows more and more obsessed with the woman who shares his love of music and unspoken loneliness of the heart. Now as Mate and Elvis come closer to discovering the truth behind Leonora's disappearance, they can no longer escape the danger that threatens to consume their lives. They're with hitmen, government agents, and Russian spies all aiming to protect Leonora's secrets at gunpoint. This is edgy, simmering historical novel for lovers of smoky noirs and anti-heroes. So,
Still have Mexican Gothic on my list to read.
Me too. She's got more books.
My second pick is an author who had kind of a big year. She's been pretty popular at our library. So this is Lucy Foley. This was published actually back in 2020. And this is The Guest List. The Bride, The Plus One, The Best Man, The Wedding Planner, The Bridesmaid, The Body. On an island off the coast of Ireland, guests gather to celebrate two people joining their lives together as one. The groom, handsome and charming, a rising television star. The bride, smart and ambitious, a magazine publisher. It's a wedding made for a magazine or for a celebrity. The designer dress, the remote location, the luxe party favors, the boutique whiskey, you name it. They spared no expense. The cell phone service may be spotty and the waves may be rough, but every detail has been expertly planned and will be expertly executed. But perfection is for plans, and people are all too human. As the champagne is popped and the festivities begin, resentments and petty jealousies begin to mingle with the well wishes. The groomsmen begin a drinking game from their school days. The bridesmaid not so accidentally ruins her dress. The bride's oldest male friend gives an uncomfortable toast, and it keeps on going from there. And then someone turns up dead. Who didn't wish this happy couple well? And perhaps more importantly, why not? I listened to this as an audiobook. The Irish Brogues definitely added to the story for me. I also listened to Lucy Foley's The Hunting Party, which took place in the Scottish Highlands.
I forgot she was Irish.
Yeah, and enjoyed that book too. And again, the accents added to the experience for me of listening to her books. I think if you're fans of Ruth Ware or Tana French, check out some books by Lucy Foley.
Yeah, I read that one. It is a good mystery because it keeps you guessing till the end. You don't know what's going to happen. So this is another favorite author that has been coming up. Riley Sager. I think Home After Dark was one of your best movies or best books.
Best books?
So this is another one by him, his newest one, or her newest one. I don't know if Riley is.
His.
Charlie Jordan is being driven across the country by a serial killer. Maybe. Behind the wheel is Josh Baxter, a stranger Charlie met by the college rideshare board, who also had a good reason for leaving university in the middle of the term. On the road, they share their stories, carefully avoiding the subject dominating the news, which is the campus killer, who's tied up and stabbed 3 students in the span of a year and has just struck again. Traveling the lengthy journey between university and their final destination, Charlie begins to notice discrepancies in Josh's story. As she begins to plan her escape from the man she's becoming certain is the killer, she starts to suspect that Josh knows exactly what she's thinking, meaning that she could very well be his next victim. So, yeah, survive the night.
My next pick is from the Classics collection. This really goes far back in time. This is The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins, which was published back in 1859.
Wow.
Yeah. In one moment, every drop of blood in my body was brought to a stop. There, as if it had that moment sprung out of the earth, stood the figure of a solitary woman, dressed from head to foot in white. This Woman in White famously opens with Walter Hartwright's eerie encounter on a moonlit London road. Engaged as a drawing master to the beautiful Laura, Walter becomes embroiled in the sinister intrigues of Sir Percival Glyde and his charming friend Count Fosco, who has a taste for white mice, vanilla bonbons, and poison. Pursuing questions of identity and insanity along the paths and corridors of English country houses and the madhouse, The Woman in White is the first and most influential of the Victorian genre that combined Gothic horror with psychological realism. Wilkie Collins was a close friend of Charles Dickens from their meeting in March 1851, until Dickens' death in June 1870. William Wilkie Collins was one of the best known, best loved, and for a time, best paid of the Victorian fiction writers. But after his death, his reputation declined as Charles Dickens bloomed. Now, Collins is given more critical and popular attention than he received for his life. Most of his books are in print, and all are now in e-text. He studied wisely. New film, television, radio versions of some of his books have been made, and all of his letters have been published. However, there is still a lot to be discovered about this superstar of Victorian fiction. So, if you want to change in the classics, The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins.
Awesome. So my next one is a newer book. It's The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave. We all have stories we never tell. Before Owen Michaels disappears, he managed to smuggle a note to his beloved wife of 1 year. Protect her. Despite her confusion and fear, Hannah Hall knows exactly whom the note refers. Owen's 16-year-old daughter, Bailey. Bailey, who lost her mother tragically as a child. Bailey, who wants absolutely nothing to do with her new stepmother. As Hannah's increasingly desperate calls to Owen go unanswered, as the FBI arrests Owen's boss, as a U.S. Marshal and FBI agents arrive at her Sausalito home unannounced, Hannah quickly realizes her husband isn't who he said he was, and that Bailey just may hold the key to figuring out Owen's true identity and why he really disappeared. Hannah and Bailey set out to discover the truth together, but as they start putting together the pieces of Owen's past, they soon realize they are building a new future, one neither Hannah nor Bailey could have anticipated. So it's a mystery. Who is this dude, and why did he just disappear? So
Just read that this winter, too. Enjoyed that book, too. My fourth pick is an author that you're probably familiar with, but I was telling Jill I wasn't familiar with this character in these series. So this is Sparkling Cyanide by Agatha Christie, which was published back in 1944. A beautiful heiress is fatally poisoned in a West End restaurant. 6 people sit down to dinner at a table laid for 7. In front of the empty place is a sprig of rosemary, in solemn memory of Rosemary Barton, who died at the same table exactly 1 year earlier. No one present on that fateful night would ever forget the woman's face, contorted beyond recognition, convulsing with pain and horror. But then Rosemary had always been memorable. She had the ability to arouse strong passions in most people she met, in one case, strong enough to kill. This book in America was titled as Remembered Death. It's the 4th and final book in the Colonel Race series. The series starts with the man in the brown suit, if you want to start at the beginning. Agatha Christie is the best-selling author of so many books. She wrote, I think, at least 65-plus crime novels and story collections. She wrote plays, novels, under a pseudonym in romance even. According to Index Translationum, she remains the most translated individual author, having been translated into at least 103 different languages. Wow. She's also the creator of 2 of the most endearing figures in crime literature, Hercule Poirot and Miss Jane Marple, and the author of The Mousetrap, which was the longest-running play in the history of modern theater. So, thought it might be fun to check out one of her other series. So, again, wasn't familiar with the Colonel Race series, but starts with the man in the brown suit, ends with Sparkling Cyanide.
Any book recommendations on mysteries should include Agatha Christie.
Agatha Christie.
So this is also an author of many books, Louise Penny. I saw this on many lists of one of the ones that you should definitely read. All the Devils Are Here, which is the 16th novel in the Chief Inspector Armine Gauche series. And the reason that I picked it was because it takes place in Paris as well, which is amazing. I love Paris. On the first night in Paris, the Gamaches gather as a family for a bistro dinner with Armand's godfather, the billionaire Stephen Horowitz. Walking home together after the meal, they watch in horror as Stephen is knocked down and critically injured in what Gamache knows is no accident, but a deliberate attempt on the elderly man's life. When a strange key is found in Stephen's possession, it sends Armand, his wife Reine-Marie, and his former second-in-command at the Surete, Jean-Guy Beauvoir, to the top of the Tour de Eiffel, the Eiffel Tower, to the bowels of the Paris archives, from luxury hotels to odd-coded works of art. It sends them deep into secrets of Armand's godfather has kept for decades. A gruesome discovery in Stephen's Paris apartment makes it clear that secrets are more rancid, the danger far greater and more imminent than they realized. Soon the whole family is caught up in a web of lies and deceits. In order to find the truth, Gamache will have to decide whether he can trust his friends, his colleagues, his instincts, his own past, and his own family. For even this city of light casts long shadows, and in the darkness, devils hide. So, all the devils are here.
Love that. Read the whole series by Louise Penny.
She's real popular.
Yeah, I don't really read a lot of series, but she was one that I've read every one. I'm always excited when a new one comes out by her. My last pick is another one that Jill and I were just talking about, The Sweetness at the Bottom of the Pie by C. Allen Bradley, which was published back in 2009. This has a young heroine in it. This is described as a quirky, delightful whodunit. It is the summer of 1950, and at the once grand mansion of Buckshaw, young 11-year-old Flavia DeLuce, an aspiring chemist with a passion for poison, is intrigued by a series of inexplicable events. A dead bird is found on the doorstep, and a postage stamp is bizarrely pinned to its beak. Then hours later, Flavia finds a man lying in the cucumber patch and watches him as he takes his dying breath. For Flavia, who's both appalled and delighted about these things, life begins in earnest when murder comes to Buckshaw. I wish I could say I was afraid, but I wasn't. Quite the contrary. This was by far the most interesting thing that ever happened to me in my entire life, she says. This is the first book in this series, which has 10 primary works. This book won the 2009 Agatha Award for the best first novel. Said if you are fans of Alexander McCall Smith or Jacqueline Winspear, you may enjoy this author. And who doesn't like an 11-year-old heroine with a bicycle?
That's so fun.
I think she named her bicycle Gladys. So this kind of sounded like a fun series to check out. The sweetness at the bottom of the pie.
Well, we hope you found something that you can read next and fill out that square.
Don't forget about your bingo sheets. Like I said, this runs January 17th to February 19th. If you want to participate, just stop at the desk and any of the library staff will be happy to give you a bingo sheet. Teen and adults, you can mark one off if you're watching us. We always love to hear from you. Tell us what you're reading. Tell us if you agree or disagree with our picks as favorites. So comment, like, share, and until next time, thanks for watching.